Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Blaine Dunn. Blaine is running for the Virginia Senate, District 1. Blaine, there's a lot of people running, and I think it's a great thing to do. Currently, Blaine is the vice chair on the Frederick County Board of Supervisors. And so what I ask everybody, Blaine, is why in the world do you want to do this?
Well, Mike.
You got to think about it for a minute. Now, I'm sure you know.
The reason I got into this race is because we were going and dealing with budget issues in Frederick County. And every one of the issues that we were dealing with had to be a problem that could only be solved at the state level.
Right.
So let me just walk through some of the problems we were dealing with. The first issue was growth. Frederick County is the fastest growing county in the state. Warren County, Clark County, Shenandoah County, Winchester City, they're all close behind.
Right.
This area is growing tremendously. I'll give you some examples. In the year 2000, Frederick County had 59,000 people. Today they have 93,000. They are projected to grow another 30 to 40,000 in the next 20 years. That's huge. And how do you pay for the growth?
Right.
So we have had a huge growth, and as we're going through this budget process, the question was, where's the revenue for that growth? Our budget has doubled. It's now about $444 million this year. So how do you pay for the growth? You can pay for it by bringing in new businesses, and I think that's good. But new businesses coming in still take time before you see the tax revenue from that.
Right.
You can pay for it by increasing real estate taxes. And that's typically been what has occurred. But if I have an extra house, I can't sell my fourth bedroom to pay for the tax.
Exactly.
So basically you have an illiquid asset and you're being asked to pay for it with liquid money. Or you can have impact fees. And impact fees would be such that the cost of new development will be borne by those that are moving into the community. Every house that's built is costing the county about $27,000. Again, $27,000 to you, the taxpayer.
Right, because you got to account for police, schools, trash, roads.
Yep. And schools are, 40, 50 billion, $100 million.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so when you have 1,000 people that are moving in and you have to build a new school, there's a huge cost to that. We're having a discussion right now in Frederick County on whether we're going to have a fourth high school or in additions to other schools. The cost is running someplace in the neighborhood of $100 million. In the last 10 years, just 10, we've had about 6,400 houses built at $27,000 apiece. We would have approximately $172 million. And if we had $172 million in our hand, this issue of how to pay for it would become a non-issue. Write a check and we're done.
Right.
And that does not include roads.
Right.
So I got into this race for economic reasons. No other candidate was talking about how to deal with the growth issue. Down here in Warren County, you just came through, you have huge growth that's going on. The same thing is occurring in Shenandoah. So this is a solution for growth. And every person that is in this county, in this whole area, is going to have to decide, do they want to have the real estate taxes go up, or do they want to have the cost of new growth borne by those that are moving in? The people that are moving in are coming from much more affluent areas. And so these are real numbers. But I've had people from Pittsburgh say, I was paying $15,000. I can afford to pay $1,500. And if you raise my taxes $1,000, no big deal.
Right.
In New Jersey,
you still have to less than half of what they were paying before.
Right. In New Jersey, $5,000. Connecticut, $5,000. Northern Virginia, $3,000, $4,000. So for those people moving in, why do they come here? It's a great community. We have a local college here. We have a couple local colleges here. Mm-hmm. It is a nice, small town atmosphere with access to large town items. It's a great place to live.
Sure.
And so who pays for the cost? Do the local residents subsidize the cost of new people coming in, or do the people that come in simply pay the associated costs that they bring with them, and adding that impact fee to a monthly mortgage might drive the mortgage up another $50, $60, $70, which is immaterial.
Right.
But if you don't do that, you're going to see real estate taxes rise. Right. Real estate taxes in Frederick County have risen about 50% in the last 7 years.
Right.
Warren County, similar. As a matter of fact, in Warren County, in Front Royal, last week, you had a situation of proffers, and the proffers did not cover the cost. So that was one big issue on getting into this.
This is not a new idea. I know states out west that grew up in Arizona, they do master plan developments, and the developer comes in, he has to build everything, including schools and roads and all the infrastructure, and then turns it over to the community after he pays for all. And that's the same thing. It's all built out of the impact fees and the cost of the property. Mm-hmm. So it's not a new idea, except it's new here. We don't do that. And then the state comes along on some of these proffers. They've just basically done away with everything. I mean,
in Florida and California, they have plans in place right there to deal with the issue. And we could go and take a look at that as options.
Right.
But we need to deal with a growth issue. And if we don't do that, real estate taxes have to rise.
Right. No one likes that.
And so that's, it's an alternative. And no other candidate was getting involved with this.
Right.
So that's one reason why I got into this race.
Right. We've heard the saying all the time, it's the economy, stupid. And no matter what election it is, it's always about the economy.
It is.
And if you could, because that gives you all the other issues, is all built around one thing.
So then with the growth, what's the next issue you have? Schools.
So that's another big source of it. No one likes to spend money for capital improvements or schools especially. And we always complain about our schools.
Mm-hmm. So you have, do you pay for it or borrow money? We've had to go, and our budget has gone and increased from $114 million in debt to about $160 million in debt. The service cost on that debt is running about $18 million. In Frederick County, it's running $20 million. Just imagine what you could do if you didn't have to pay service debt. You could reduce taxes.
Right.
Or you could provide other services.
Right.
So from the school's perspective, what's the first thing you want to have? You want to have children that are in a safe environment. And I've supported SROs, school resource officers, to provide that. But we need that across the board. Children need to be able to go to school, be safe. Their parents need to know their child is in a school and he is safe, she is safe. That's important. The second thing you want to deal with on education is you want to have children come out and know how to critically think. They need to have basic math, science, know the U.S. Constitution, know the Bill of Rights, know what they stand for, and be able to critically think. If you can do that, then we have a good citizenry that can come out. And whether they're going out to go to a trade school, or getting out to get a job, or go to the military, or go to college, when they come out at the age of 18, 17, 18, if they can go and function well, that's important.
Right. I think that's come up with all our not homeschooling, but remote learning this last year or two. People are really dreading, are we going to be able to hire kids that can read? That's almost, or they always say now they're 1 or 2 years behind.
And you have colleges that have said, you have a graduate, but we're having to train them. You've had employers that say, we have a graduate, but we have to train them. And they need to come out, be prepared to go into a business position.
Exactly.
Not.
I've always said that schools need to guarantee their product.
Exactly.
If they should be able to perform at this level, and if they can't, the school needs to pick it back up and retrain them. Mm-hmm. But I haven't been able to convince anyone of that yet. But I think schools turn out a product, and that's competition, and we're seeing a lot of that. With the school choice thing moving around the country, not just in Virginia, but all over the United States. So,
I think school choice is good. Yeah. School choice provides competition. If you have competition where the dollars follow the child, then every person is going to say, every school is going to say, we want those dollars. What do we do to improve our system?
Right.
In the federal government, when you get federal money, the federal money goes with the student to whatever school he wants to go to. Same concept can be done in the state, where the state dollars follow the child, and then you have competition so that children can go and learn well. And they can also learn the values that the parents have. I think parents are the ultimate decider on what a child should be. It's not the teachers. It's not the administration. Parents have a right.
Parents need to be involved.
To be involved big time.
Yeah.
And so if parents can say, this school has done a great job, there they go.
Another great thing about schools, and I don't think people put as much credit on it, that's kind of like your anchor. That's what draws people to your community. I can remember I've hired a general manager years ago, and he came here up from Fairfax, but he ended up moving to Winchester because he felt the schools were stronger for his kids in Winchester than they were in Warren County, and he was willing to drive reverse commute, Same thing. What drew him was here's the job, but where are we going to live is based on schools. I think anybody who has family, they look at schools.
And they look at schools, not only that, if you're extremely wealthy, you can afford to put your child into a private school.
Right.
Most people don't have that type of wealth.
Right.
So why not give everybody else the same opportunity to go and say, this is a good school, it teaches what I want to do, etc.
Right.
In addition, in the schools, I've heard people say that you have to teach to a test. I've heard more than one teacher say, I want to be able to teach a child to critically think.
Right.
So that needs to change. In addition, there's certain mandates that may or may not be functional at the state level. Again, this becomes a state issue. But what we want from the schools is children that can think and a system that delivers children who can think well. And that would benefit everybody. So you ask, why did I get into the race?
Well, you got a couple items.
That's a key issue.
Yeah.
So again, you want to have safe schools. You want to have schools that go and turn out children that critically think. And teachers do a great job of that. So I'm not faulting teachers.
Right.
They do a great job. But the administrators of those schools also need to back the teachers so you have safety in the schools.
Right.
And then children need to learn, reading, writing, arithmetic, Constitution, history.
Right. Something lacking nowadays, I think, when you always watch these late night TV shows and they'll take out who's the picture of the president. They don't know who that is, or their congressman, or and they don't even know who the president of the United States is. Well, I think didn't he do something?
And from my perspective, I think you ought to be able to say, fine, the year's 2020. Tell me 5 reasons why you should vote for Biden.
Right.
Tell me 5 reasons why you should vote for Trump. And if you can't do that critical thinking,
sure.
you need to. So that's important.
Yeah.
And you go down the
big story we just posted yesterday was the college vote. They're registering them in this line and then coming to this line to vote in the same day. I mean, that's something that I don't know what, right now the Democrats love it, but the Republicans don't like it.
So, another reason I got into this race, again, a state issue, is from my perspective, I think we need to have an election day, not an election season.
Yes.
And the reason is that on election day, everybody has the same information about all candidates and they can make a decision. When you have an election season, you've already voted 45 days before the election.
Then you find out something. And I want to change my vote.
And you know what, Mike? They don't allow you to change your vote.
That's one thing. That worked well for how many, over 100 years? 200 years. It worked fine. Then all of a sudden, well, it's not any good. We got to change it. And you're right. I think going back to election day, and most people you talk to, they like that. There's already arrangements for people that can't make it. Mm-hmm. We've had that exception for 200 years.
Absentee voting.
And they work.
So if you're disabled or if your employer says, no, you have to work this 24-hour shift, absentee vote, you have a legitimate reason to do so, and go so.
You can use almost any reason. There's a whole list. I mean, and almost everyone falls under one category.
But I have concerns about mail-in voting. Because that leads to fraud. I have concerns about motor voter registration. I have concerns about same-day registration. And here's my utility bill to prove it.
Right.
And I had a conversation with the registrar in Frederick County. And for surrounding areas, they can determine whether you had lived someplace else and tried to vote twice.
Sure.
But if you're coming from Hawaii or California or Alaska or Montana, there's no proof.
Right.
So if you can register to vote with the same proof that's required for a U.S. citizenship passport, then you know you have U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
But right now, utility bill. Hey, here's my electric bill. And that's just wrong.
Right. Easier to register to vote than it is to get a library card.
It is. So from my perspective, if you have voting on the same day, the country benefits, the state benefits, localities benefit, because everyone knows the positions of all candidates, and then make a decision right there on the spot, and that benefits everybody.
Someone told me, they said, you can go to America's Got Talent, and they can vote on their phone. They can all vote in an hour and tally up 10 votes from all around the world and get it done like that. But it takes us 6 weeks or 6 months to get the votes tallied. I never could figure that out.
Well, today in Virginia, you can mail in a ballot on election day.
Yeah.
Then it's 3 days till Friday now, and that ballot still counts. And then you have to count them. So that's why you're not finding out the day after, but you're finding out a week after.
Right, yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said, and there's a lot of knowledge that people need to look at, too, other than just, oh, I know that guy, or I think it is, or someone. When I worked polls before, people would walk up to, well, who should I vote for? Or who's the most popular? Or how's it look? And they'll, when they come to the polls, they really don't know anything about the election.
I've been involved in politics for the last 8 years, and I've always said, you vote on policy. As long as you have good people that are running, pick a policy that you agree with, and go from there, because that makes a difference.
Right.
I mean, I've been involved in politics off and on for the last 40 years. I've been a legislative director for 3 members of Congress. I've been legislative director of staff for 2 federal agencies. I've been involved in a number of campaigns, but I'm also a business person. So I have my own financial planning firm, which is a fiduciary, fee-only financial planning firm. And we go and help clients with budget issues, retirement issues, getting out of debt, how to invest, etc. Mm-hmm. Those skills, I think, benefit when you go down to Richmond to say, what's your budget? What can you afford to live with or in? And how do you go and raise revenue if you can't?
Right.
Or how do you reduce debt?
Right.
All those are important things to deal with.
Right. It's just the scale changes. Yeah, it's like people can understand it. They always said when you look at these big numbers, just take all the zeros off and just look at the first two digits, and then we can relate to that,
Well, if you want to relate, I was talking to my wife, and she said, look at the price of eggs. Look how fast they've gone up. Look at the price of bread. Look at the price of meat. Look at the price of milk, etc. It's gone up significantly.
And she said, Blaine, you're not making enough money.
And I said to her, dear, Biden's energy policies are having an effect because the cost of movement, the cost of processing is an energy issue.
Right.
And so when Biden went and shut down the pipeline, but then allowed it in Europe, it's nuts.
Right.
So, we can deal with that, but that's a federal issue. But in the state level, we can go and try to address that issue as well.
Right. Of course, then we have this, I don't know how it works. Well, it does work, but we're a Dillon state, so the local governments can't do anything unless the state gives us permission to do it. I mean, that's a pretty basic answer to it, but there's a lot to be said. So, I always say, we've talked about here in Warren County about building that interchange and, out here on 66 and, VDOT this and VDOT that. I said, that's never going to be built by VDOT. It's only going to be built by politicians in Richmond. And until you get the politics involved in it, then I said, VDOT does what they're told,
So now we come back to, another state issue. Why did I get involved in this race? Roads. So here in Warren County, if you take a look at where you were 20 years ago and take a look at today, it's a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. And we haven't built a single anything.
In Frederick County, I could take you to places where if you had 2 or 3 cars, that was a traffic jam 20 years ago.
Right.
Today, it's 25 cars.
Right.
Coming down here today, truck after truck after truck after truck after truck after truck. So roads are a state issue. And so as the development occurs, who pays for it? And how do you get the funding for that? In Frederick County, as a member of the board, I ended up putting together a forum for Route 37, which is a bypass for Winchester.
Right.
And we had both federal and state officials, a member of Congress, staff from Congress, our local state delegation, to try to find out what is the funding necessary to deal with bypasses, or how do you deal with the internal growth in Frederick County, and how do you deal with the internal growth in Front Royal in the area. Same thing in Woodstock. So you can go through and say, how do you deal with the growth issue? And right now, VDOT has what's called a Smart Scale program. So the Smart Scale program, Mike, says that if you have an issue, and let's say we have an issue that's this big, and it costs, I'm making up numbers here, $100 to fix that issue. The money will not arrive for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And if the area is not growing, then the problem can be fixed. But in this area, in the northern Shenandoah Valley, the program is not here, but when the money arrives in 3 or 4 or 5 years, it's this big.
Right.
And so the money doesn't meet the need. So I've advocated in front of VDOT and at this forum and down in Richmond that VDOT needs to change their Smart Scale so that the money that they allocate solves not the problem for today, but the problem there will be when the money arrives 4 years and 5 years down the road. And if we can get that done, then that solves some of the road problems.
I think Virginia's overall idea of roads, I can remember when we moved here in the mid-'70s, and the rest of the states have built around the 495, 4 lanes, 6 lanes, Virginia, 2 lanes, and the answer was from the mayor or the governor, well, when we think there's a need, we'll build it. So they built 4 lanes. Well, everybody else had 8 lanes. They've only built 4. And guess what? They're always in a state of construction because they're always behind. And you go down and you see all the ramps and the things that they built. And they just did that 4 years ago. And they just did it again 4 years before that. No vision. And I think that's really what we expect our leaders to have is we don't need you to worry about what's happening today. What about 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now? We have to have people that have vision in the future to look at these problems, like you say, and do that.
I mean, when I got on the board, we had a 1-year budget plan. I advocated for multi-year budget plans. And that, as you said, you want to lay a comprehensive plan on what you can fund, what you will fund over the next 3, 4, 5 years and start thinking along those lines.
Exactly.
And that will kind of address some of the issues that we're dealing with here.
Right. So we're going to have this election. We're having a primary because we have a lot of candidates. And this is a brand new district, this District 1, and encompasses Shenandoah County, Warren County, Frederick County,
Clark
City
County.
of Winchester and Clark County,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So that's a nice condensed area. And a lot of people, some candidates have moved here to run. Other people, we got quite a few local candidates running. So when is all this happening?
The election's on June 20.
June 20.
And I would just encourage all voters to go and take a look at all 8 candidates, take a look at the policies, and then make a good decision. Let me just tell you a little bit of background on myself. I'm a former history teacher and a technical rep. I built my own business, which has been highly successful. I've worked for 3 members of Congress and 2 federal agencies. So that's a good background. Then it goes down to what do I believe in? So I'm in favor of traditional marriage. I think there should not be infringements on the First, Second, and Fourth Amendments. And on the Second Amendment, I drafted a resolution that said that, that reaffirmed the right in Frederick County. I also went on the Second Amendment issue, and Winchester City had a anti-gun forum which was inhibiting some business owners that I knew there. I spoke against that. I was the only person to go down and speak on that issue. I also was endorsed by the VCDL PAC a year ago when I ran for a supervisory position. So VCDL's PAC thinks that my positions are good positions. I think that we should end illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is a cost to the county, cost to the state. And so if you need to come here legally. We'd love to have people with talent, but they need to come here, legally. I attend a church in Winchester, Fellowship Bible Church. I'm a former Boy Scout commissioner, Order of the Arrow. So I think I have some items to offer.
You have a good broad experience, don't you, Blaine?
I do.
Right.
I think that benefits.
You mentioned this immigrant. I'm not sure how it is today, but I can remember not that long ago that they were begging for people to come in the workers program to do work in the apples and the agriculture, and they could never fill it. I don't think still to this day they can never. There's always slots open for people to come.
And this country is open to people to come here legally and provide a service, and I think we welcome those people.
Sure.
Whether you're an apple picker or whether you have high technical skills, and that's important. But if you're coming here then to take those skills back to your home country, such as China, I have major problems with that.
Because what we do, we allow people to come in students, and we train them, then we let them go. So we're letting the people in that really can't help us, and the people that are here that could help us, we let them go. I don't know. It's a crazy situation.
In Virginia, unfortunately, we have China that's buying up land.
Yeah.
In the same way it's occurring elsewhere.
Right.
So the question is, that becomes a national security issue. And is that appropriate, or should there be restraints on that? And the answer is there should be.
Yeah. You can't do it in China. You can't buy land in China.
I know. So why are we putting in land next to military bases here?
Well, we think about that. I always say, well, they can't take it with them. That's what they say. Well, Blaine, it sounds like you got a lot of things to your benefit that people should pay attention to. Take a look. You have a website. We'll put that link below the story here. Go to the website. Check out Blaine. Check out all the things he has. All his qualifications and some of his issues and his positions that he's on. We want you to take a look at that. It's June 20th.
June 20th. So, Mike, the website is blainedunn.com. And there's also a Facebook page, Dunn for Virginia, Dunn for VA. You can look at those. And for the voters, I'd appreciate your vote.
Sure.
I'd appreciate you taking a look at who I am, what I believe in, and how I can benefit you. As I've talked to Mike, we're talking about the economy and impact fees, which will help to keep your real estate taxes low. We're talking about good schools where your children are safe. We're talking about roads, so we can expand those roads and not have you be just crowded on them. And then to have an election day, not an election season. I'm in favor of traditional marriage. I'm opposed to infringements on the First, Second, and Fourth Amendments. And Mike, it's been good to chat with you.
Right.
And
hopefully we'll see you sometime after June again.
I'd like to do that.
And we'll talk about the election in November.
Well, we could do that. I know that my wife would be more than willing to sit down here and chat with you as well.
Oh, I know she's.
And I'm fortunate. I mean, I'll tell you, Mike. I'm fortunate to have Joy. She is a great wife. She's a great helper. #1 supporter. I mean, I couldn't do this without her. So I just want to, benefit her.
He's trying to get a lot of bonus points there, Joy.
Hey, I'm just telling you the truth.
It's true. Behind every successful man is a woman pushing him. That's what they say.
But we work together as a team.
You do. I know. I've known you for quite a few years, and I see that. Well, Blaine, again, congratulations on that, and we thank you so much for running.
Mike, thank you.
We encourage people to run. The more the merrier. I think it gets conversation and gets things going, and I'm sure you've said, well, that's a pretty good idea. I mean, think about that. And hopefully, if worst case is, some of these other ideas will get pushed to Richmond. That's what we want.
Yep, I'll be glad to listen.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Take care.